Hi everyone, Aaron here for Zollotech, and iOS 18 is looking to be one of the best, if not the best, updates ever. We'll talk about that along with iPhone 16 Pro updates and much more. This is your weekly Apple News update for the week of March 25th, 2024. Now, Apple opened up a new store in Mississauga, Ontario, Canada this past week, and I mentioned that they would be opening that soon. The one different thing about the store, it's called Apple Store Square 1, is that it has a dedicated pickup area, and it's the first of its kind in Canada. You'll see here's a viewer, Kyle Todd, that actually posted some of the pictures from the store opening. Looks like a really nice store, and if you've actually visited this, I'd love to hear from you in the comments below. Now, the big story this past week, of course, was the U.S. Department of Justice is suing Apple for monopolistic practices with iPhone. They're actually blaming the demise of Amazon's Fire Phone on Apple, among other claims, and Apple has said they'll vigorously defend against it. Also, some more information has come out about Apple Watch after the Department of Justice went after Apple and said also that the Apple Watch was not available on other platforms and this could be a problem. This has actually caused Apple to mention the Apple Watch that they tried to bring it to Android, but they had some technical limitations. They tried for about 3 years. So maybe after all this is over, we'll see different devices such as Apple Watch on Android, but at this point it looks like Apple tried it at least, and I'd love to hear more about that. Let me know if you'd like to see them bring that to maybe different devices or other things as well. Also, now that Apple has updated iOS to allow for third-party app stores and sideloading in the EU, they actually introduced new fees for developers who decide to go outside the normal App Store. This has actually caused the EU to once again look into the issue, and they're going after Apple again, saying that they're not in compliance and they shouldn't be charging extra fees. So this is something that's going to be going back and forth probably for a few years at this point. Also, Tim Cook visited China this past week and said Apple would start selling Apple Vision Pro in China later this year. I'm sure they'll sell it in other places, but it looks like they're going to start rolling it out around the world. We're not sure if it's going to be before WWDC or later in the year, though. Also, a business card, one signed by Steve Jobs, actually just recently sold at an auction for an incredible $181,000. So that's something that it's just a signed business card. We're seeing that with iPhones, Apple One computers, and much more. So we'll probably see these prices continue to go up. If you have YouTube TV and you watch a lot of sports, you can now view it with multi-view. You can watch more than one show at once, and if you pay for this service, you can stream those and then watch a couple different shows at the same time. So that should be available if you use YouTube TV. Also, to go along with YouTube, my friend Brian Tong this past week actually had the chance to ride around Apple Park in a golf cart and ask Apple executives a bunch of questions. So this is worth a watch if you're interested in hearing about the views on iPhone, Vision Pro, and much more. A recent iOS update added the ability for iPhones to be updated in the Apple Store while in the box prior to being sold. We talked about this earlier on. Mark Gurman actually mentioned this, and it looks like Apple's going to be rolling that out shortly. So instead of having to maybe go home, set up your iPhone, and update during the process, it should already be updated at the store when it's in the box. Typically, Apple will ship a phone, such as the next phone, iPhone 16, will probably ship with an old version or a not updated version of iOS 18, and they'll want to update that in the store to get it ready for the consumer. So that makes a lot of sense, and they should be rolling that out in stores very soon if they haven't already. As far as weekly Apple deals, well, the M3 MacBook Air is now on sale for $95 off, sold directly from Apple on Amazon. There's deals on the iPad 10th Gen, iPad Air, AirPods Pro are still $189, it seems perpetually, as well as deals on Beats Studio Pro, Apple Pencil 2, and much more. I'll link them in the description along with deals on the Apple Watch and much more. Now, of course, last week we had iOS 17.4.1. We're still waiting for iOS 17.5 Beta 1. I would expect that as soon as tomorrow. Typically, that's when we can expect it to release. Usually this will bring it in line, or at least this is why I think it's delayed, is Apple will bring it in line with what we had for releases last year with iOS 16.5 Beta 1. It was along this week, and they had to really hurry up and get iOS 17.4 out to comply with those European Union laws. So now we should be back in sort of the same time frame release schedule that we had last year. Now, also, we've been waiting for the release of macOS 14.4.1. There were many bugs with it, specifically with USB hubs, other security updates, and more that it needed, and Apple has released macOS 14.4.1 today. They've also updated their security release website. However, they didn't release any updates to watchOS, tvOS, or HomePodOS either. So we're waiting for those. Maybe they didn't require the security updates, as Apple has updated their security website and also included what they they've updated with iOS 17.4.1 last week. So there's a couple important updates here. You'll see there's just 2 listed for Core Media and WebRTC, and the same is true if we go to macOS Sonoma 14.4.1. The impact was processing an image may lead to arbitrary code execution, and they fixed it with an out-of-bounds write issue, which was addressed with improved input validation. Also, the WebRTC one was processing an image may lead to arbitrary code execution. Basically the exact same thing, and this update seems to fix those. Now, as far as macOS 14.4.1, let me know if you'd like a separate video about that in the comments below, but at least they've patched these, and of course, maybe we'll see some other updates in a day or so with watchOS and more. Now, also, not just 17.5 beta 1 we're waiting for, but we're also waiting for the invites or the at least announcement of WWDC 2024. Typically, they'll announce it by the end of March or early April. Last year, it was announced late in March, so we could see that as soon as this week where they'll announce the actual dates. That means we'll get a real time frame as when to expect iOS 18 beta 1, whether it's the first or second week of June. We'll know when that is, and they'll usually update their developer app as well, where it will include a whole section about WWDC, and it will change to 2024 with dates and different things with keynotes and much more. So we could see that any day now. It could be this week, it could be next, but I would expect it very, very soon. And when it comes to iOS 18, the great news this week is it looks like Apple's going to introduce customizable home screens, according to Mark Gurman, and also being backed up by MacRumors. Instead of having to place your icons where Apple wants you to from top left to right, you'll now be able to place them wherever you want according to the latest rumor. It seems that we'll have options to leave rows, but there'll probably be some snapping here where it will sort of align things, but we'll at least be able to put them where we want and not have to have the whole screen filled. So instead of having an empty one in the bottom right, we could have it wherever we want that suits our own needs. So that's something I know that we've seen on other platforms for a while. We so far haven't seen it with iOS though. Mark Gurman is also saying that AI will be the main event with AI tools that help you manage your daily life. That will be a big part of iOS 18, and he keeps reiterating that Apple is working on iOS 18 as though it's the largest update since the initial launch of iPhone. So this could be a huge update. I'm hoping for some sort of redesign as well. I personally never really cared for the control center the way it is, and I don't like the icons being flat. I would like some more depth to them and maybe an option to hide the dock or something else. So we could have all of that customization built in, and I'm hoping it's nothing like what we have with our lock screen where it's a little bit complicated. You press and hold, you customize. There's just too many button presses to do this, and I'm hoping that Apple really updates that so it's much better there and also updated on the home screen as well. Also, watchOS 11 we heard the first of this time, and Mark Gurman expects it to be a minor update, so Apple's not focused on it at all. However, there is apparently going to be an update to visionOS called visionOS 2, or it's known as codename Constellation. What it includes, we're not really sure, but it looks like Apple's working on it and it should release this year. So maybe we'll have some enhancements, maybe some updates with different scenes in the background, and things we're not expecting. We also heard today that Apple's working on an Apple Pencil that could work with Apple Vision Pro as maybe an input device, maybe a more accurate input device, something different, maybe be able to draw, but also be able to tap and select things. So we'll have to see how that works and what that means if that ever actually launches, but apparently they've been working on that. We're hearing more about iPhone 16 as we're getting closer and closer to Apple ramping up production. They usually have to get ready around the June-July timeframe to ramp up production to get all of those made by September so we can buy them. And it looks like, according to website CISA Journal, that Apple is planning to use a new ultra-thin bezel technology to allow for more screen real estate on iPhone 16 models. Now, we knew that they're going to probably increase the screen size from 6.7 to 6.9 inches, but keep the same frame, and that will be on the Pro Max model, but it looks like they're going to use a new screen technology to do that. Maybe limit the area where they have to wrap around some of the internals to connect to the motherboard or logic board. So that's something I think we'll see. We'll get thinner bezels even more and just a larger screen real estate. Also, the A18 Pro chip that's expected in iPhone 16 devices is expected to have a major upgrade to help with iOS 18 AI, to allow you to process it on the chip and not send it out to Apple to be processed like Google does. So that's something that we should see. We're hearing more and more about that, and this time around it comes from analyst Jeff Poo, who said that Apple's working on that and expect that with the next iPhone models. Also, there's some Apple Watch news where Apple keeps going back and forth on their plan to use micro LED. According to Mark Gurman, micro LED is something Apple wants to use, but the cost of sort of developing the technology on their own and producing it is just far too expensive. This time around, they've been looking to outsiders to help with that, and they haven't been able to find one that meets Apple's standards just yet. So that will be something that's coming in the future probably, but right now it looks like maybe that's the reason they're going to OLED for iPads. And where are the new iPads? Well, according to Instant Digital, the new iPad Air has already shipped from China, so it should be on its way to the United States, but we just haven't heard an announcement yet. Also, the latest rumor on the next-gen iPads from, again, Instant Digital on Weibo says that the bezels are thinner and that Apple will offer a matte display option instead of just glossy. That's the first time we've seen that on any Apple device other than their monitors, and so that would be something I would probably buy myself. It means that the next-gen iPad would now have a new OLED display with a matte option, thinner chassis overall, updated cameras in the front and the back, and a landscape-oriented camera here on the top as well. So lots of changes are expected, but we haven't seen the iPads just yet. So we could have sort of an announcement anytime, but I think it's going to be in April at this point since we haven't had it already. And so that's everything this week with all the Apple news. Lots of things to look forward to, especially iOS 18, where I know this has been an old design at this point, and many people would love to see more customization and just changes overall. Let me know what you want most in iOS 18. I'd love to hear from you in the comments below. And of course, I'll link this wallpaper in the description like I normally do. If you haven't subscribed already, though, please subscribe. And if you enjoyed the video, please give it a like. As always, thanks for watching. This is Aaron. I'll see you next time.